So it's actually more than 6, and let me tell you how. It's 6 of the federal prosecutors in the Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office, one of whom was the head federal prosecutor investigating the fraud case.
Danielle has come back from Kenya, where she was happy.
And now she's...
I don't blame you, honestly.
I was very happy.
I've been a lot of time in Europe lately, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is what it's like to live in a civilized place? Shit.
Danielle's like, I was happy once when? Yesterday.
Yesterday.
You just got back.
I landed this morning.
Danielle Moodie, folks, is a trooper. I got this WhatsApp message. She goes, I have landed. I'm landing at 5:41 a.m. Maybe we could do Democracy-ish tonight. I'm like, why don't you sleep like a normal human? Why are you sounding like me? But she's here, glowing black skin. Could she be 45? Could she be 75? We don't know. Black don't crack.
That's right.
Danielle looks better than I do. And also Asian don't raisin. We're with Katie Phang. Same thing. I asked Katie, how would you like me to introduce you on Democracy-ish? And she goes, a bad bitch. And then she said, actually, the second baddest bitch next to Danielle Moodie. Her words. So we got 2 bad bitches who aren't here to mess around as we take on Donald Trump. And I'm just going to use the words we've been using here on Democracy-ish for years. You got to use these words, a fascist regime. I'm not even going to use the word neo-Nazi. A Nazi regime that is literally quoting word for word Nazi talking points.
Yeah, it's not really too neo. The neo part of it is like, it's not really neo.
The neo's gone. I dropped neo yesterday, folks. Officially, I've dropped neo.
Full on old school Nazism, isn't it? Full on old school fascism.
And before we get into it, I'm going to throw it to Danielle and Katie. Danielle's come back from Kenya where she was happy, and now she's landed. For those who don't know why Katie and I are now saying it's not neo-Nazi, very quickly, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, with all her Botox, stood behind a lectern a few days ago. On the lectern, there was a huge sign. The sign said very clearly, one of ours, all of yours. Now, for those who don't know, because, we live in 2026 and we shouldn't be talking about Nazis, but Nazis are trending every week ever since Trump took over. That was the Nazi slogan that was used to kill every single man in a Czech village after one villager killed an SS officer. So they said, oh, one of ours, all of yours. A literal Nazi talking point that the DHS Secretary Kristi Noem now has on a placard as she stands behind a lectern as they're covering up the murder of Renee Nicole Good, which all of us have seen with our own eyes. And what we want to talk about today, some good news, if you will, is how the resistance is standing up to Trump's authoritarian overreach. And Katie, because you're an attorney, a prosecutor, I want to ask you about this one piece of good news. 6, as of yesterday, 6, and I think that number is going to increase. 6 U.S. federal prosecutors, U.S. attorneys have resigned publicly because they have said the Justice Department is forcing them to investigate Renee Good's widow instead of the murder. As a prosecutor, can you tell us why that's such a big deal?
Well, it's so funny. The timing is impeccable. We must be simpatico. I was actually just cutting an episode for my YouTube channel about it. So it's actually more than 6, and let me tell you how. It's 6 of the federal prosecutors in the Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office, one of whom was the head federal prosecutor investigating the fraud case that they began investigating back in 2022. That has been the whole genesis of the occupation, and we're going to use that word too today, folks, the occupation of the Twin Cities. He was ordered to investigate Becca Good, the wife of Renee Nicole Good, and he said, peace the fuck out. I'm not doing this. I am not doing this. I am not going to demonize the wife of this woman. And Mr. Thompson was the name of this federal prosecutor. He said, why are we not investigating this shooting? Because the DOJ Civil Rights Division announced just a couple of days ago that they were not going to be investigating that. That announcement created the mass resignation of at least 4 federal prosecutors at Main Justice in Washington, D.C. So at last count, Waj and Danielle, we have at least 10 federal prosecutors. And what I was stressing and underscoring in my episode is this. You want to talk about loss of integrity and good people. These are the people, this is not just like, hey, I'm not going to be, doing some random job anymore. This was a really critical job as a federal prosecutor. These are longtime senior career federal prosecutors that had said, we are not going to do this. We have witnessed something that has been a horrific act, and we are not going to let this be a stain on our reputations. And so they said, I'm out.
I wonder here, and this has been a kind of volleying back and forth on social media, which is, do we commend these people for resigning en masse, for not wanting to be a part of a cover-up, for not wanting to work inside of a hostile regime? Or are we upset by this and saying, if all of the good people inside of the Justice Department then leave, then what happens? Then who becomes right? Who becomes the whistleblower? Who becomes the seer? Who becomes the person that is bearing witness to and will report on, right, what they have seen following, right, whenever this regime crumbles, whenever it ends? If all the good people go, then we're left with what? Copycat Bondis, copycat Patels? That doesn't make me feel better.
Well, that is the significant catch-22 here, right? I mean, that's truly the conflict. Who are we, though, Danielle, to ask these people to go against what their moral compass asks them to do? For example, to investigate Becca Good, and to not be able to investigate the truth behind the murder of Renee Nicole Good. I always wonder, what did it take for them to last this long? Number one, right? And then number two, and by the way, let me just take a second on that and pull on that thread. Maybe they have mortgages they have to pay. I don't know, right? I mean, they have families to support. I can't judge that. I understand your concern, Danielle, about not having people that are there to be on the front lines, to be seeing in real time the horrors and the degradation and the distortion of what's happening. But I do think that it sends a message to the public, though, that they have seen all of that they know what's behind the curtain, and that they are telling us as Americans that, yes, you can believe your own eyes and what you feel, because it is just as bad, if not worse. But I agree that after a while, all you have left are the dregs. But there has been mass resignations from the Department of Justice, specifically the Civil Rights Division, because of this Harmeet Dillon lady who took over, and because she's completely hijacked that division in such a horrific way. So I'm going to answer your question, Danielle, as saying I'm grateful for those that stay for the right reasons, but I'm grateful for those that leave publicly for the right reasons.
And I think that that's the point, is the publicness, the public nature, not just quietly putting in a resignation, but doing it in a way that draws light, even if it is for half a news cycle, for a beat of a news cycle, to say that we're all leaving for this reason. And the reason being the investigation into the unjustified widow, right? The widow of Renee Nicole Good, who lost her wife a week ago. And you're opening up an investigation to find out that she was on her son's PTA, that she was trying to help other parents figure out how to protect their kids at school and keep them safe from ICE. That's what she was doing, right? This is part of their investigation that they're doing. I just, it worried, the place that we're in, it doesn't worry me. It terrifies me, because what happens when no one good is left? I guess Waj is that's where I sit. It's not me judging and saying you need to stay and be miserable and put your integrity and your values on the line. But folks need to understand what happens inside of these institutions that were already deeply flawed. What happens when there is no one good that's left?
I mean, it's the exodus, right? And it's the exodus of all good people. But I do think, Katie, to your point, there is something very powerful about these prosecutors publicly resigning in this way, and not just resigning this way, actually giving the reason. In a sense, they are like whistleblowers. They're saying, wait a second, let me tell you what the DOJ really is interested in. Instead of investigating this murder, where literally Bill Ackman, a billionaire, has given money to a GoFundMe page for this murderer, run by a a Nazi. That's literally who started this GoFundMe page, a guy who praises Hitler, and Bill Ackman, a billionaire who's Jewish, has given money for the murderer of Renee Nicole Good. I think words matter here. They're saying, oh no, we want to investigate the widow. And I think this goes back to, and I think this is an important point I keep trying to remind people, is in September, Katie, Ken Klippenstein, who's going to be on at 5 p.m., he got this memo, National Security Presidential Memo 7,
Yeah,
in which
NSPM
the
7. It's a big deal. Yep.
NSPM 7, which, by the way, folks, directly ties to what we're witnessing right now. In September, the same time when this Trump administration, Katie, said that Antifa, wherever you may be, is a terrorist organization that they're really invested in going after, not white supremacists, Danielle and Katie, but, Antifa. The National Security Presidential Memo 7, because it's the seventh memo of its kind, said that the Trump administration was unleashing all of its powers against indicators of radical left-wing terrorism. And one of those indicators, folks, is, quote, anti-American sentiment, whatever that means, anti-Christian sentiment. And going back to the murder of Renee Nicole Good, the reason I call this a cover-up, and I think we should call it's a cover-up. The Trump administration is trying to cover up a murder in real time in the dumbest way possible. Katie, the day of Kristi Noem comes out while her body was still warm, and she called her a domestic terrorist, her exact words, who weaponized her car. And this is what I want folks to pay attention, because you think you're safe, you're not. They trained her to weaponize her car against ICE this way. When you hear that, especially when you hear this administration using the words like Insurrection Act, Alien Enemies Act, invasion, National Security Presidential Memo 7, is it too far, Katie, to say that they have declared war against us, and Renee Nicole Good is them saying, you mess up, you talk back to us, you're a suburban mom who gives us lip, we're going to do to you what we did to Renee Nicole Good. And guess what? J.D. Vance said the murderer has absolute immunity.
Which Stephen Miller has repeated that legal lie of absolute immunity. I'm here to tell you there's no such thing as absolute immunity for what just happened to Renee Nicole Good. They declared war on us a long time ago. They may not have used the word war, but we've been talking about this for decades, if not longer. The war on woke was a more colloquial expression, I think, that they used. And this is just one thread, one kind of nuanced strain of that war. I think what was so shocking for a lot of people was not only the ability to kind of witness in real time and or immediately thereafter, the video of this murder happening in front of you. And just the horror of seeing that it was just illegal on its face, like just no room for interpretation on it. There's no, I'm looking at it and there could be a different way of looking at it. But I do think part of it is, this is not somebody who looks like you, Danielle, you, Waj, or me, right? That's a very stark thing for a lot of people to see. For a long time, this NSPM 7, Antifa, and all this other stuff, right? This all kind of suggested things that were linked to immigrants. Because remember, this is all an immigration enforcement lie, right? And you all thought it had to do with just black and brown people, but now they've expanded the scope of this war to include people that may look like them because they're white, but they clearly don't share their ideologies, which is the basis of that NSPM 7. And the reason why you use the language domestic terrorist, even though it's a lie, is because national security is the magic word for somebody like Trump, because the courts have shown exceptional deference to matters of national security and the ability of a president and the executive branch to be able to do things under the guise of national security. And because of that, that's why if you just slap the label domestic terrorist on other people that you don't like or with whom you don't agree, and then you suggest you're doing things for national security, then people say in courts, right? Oh, well, then I guess that's going to be kosher and okay, and we'll give deference to the discretion of the executive. And that's part of the reason why they've done it. And the thing about NSPM 7 that's very nefarious, it's not just, quote, Antifa. It spreads its tentacles to include the PTA that Danielle was just talking about.
There you go.
It spreads its tentacles to include organizations that are providing meals to people that, may not agree with this administration. It basically is so broad, illegally so, and so vague and ambiguous in its language that they can invoke it and use it. And then later on, it forces the burden on the person to have to challenge its legality later on versus the other way around.
Yeah, I just think that it, again, I said this earlier today with Jared, and I appreciate so many Black folks in particular who are journalists, who are independent folks that are saying that what is happening and what we're seeing this Trump administration do is what slave catcher laws did for centuries to Black people, right? It was the ability to deputize white men and make running away from torture, rape, and violence a crime that Black people would then pay for with their lives. And those slave catchers would get wonderful bonuses, right? So much in the same way that ICE is getting $50,000 signing bonuses, much in the same way that they're getting their student loans dismissed if in fact they actually went to university, they're using the same premise of the slave catcher and that mentality and deputizing these people and using the law in the way that the law has been used for centuries to ingrain oppression against Black people and people of color in this country. And so I said earlier, and I hear what the two of you are saying with the Nazi language because it is also correct, but America need not reach across the Atlantic in order to understand what is happening. You actually only need to reach for a history book and understand that the policies that are being used, administered right now are ones that have been on the books, but they've only been for a certain group of people, namely Black people. But now that a white mom can be shot dead in the street, people are like, well, wait a minute. Well, I will say Black people been telling you this for centuries about America and itself and about the ways that the law has been manipulated to create a racial divide, a racial wealth divide, a class divide, et cetera, et cetera. And so, whether it be the seventh rule that is written, what did the FBI decide a couple of years ago? Oh, we're not going to investigate white domestic terrorism. We're going to go after Black extremist groups. And that was at the height of the Black Lives Matter movement. We're going to investigate Black extremist organizations. Oh, you mean like you tapped Martin Luther King Jr.'s phones? You mean like you tapped Malcolm X? You mean like how you brought down the Black Panthers, right? Like, again, what is new? It's not really new. It is the oldest playbook that America has had.
Amen.
I see some folks in the chat, and hi folks in the chat. Some folks are saying that they disagree, Waj, with the invocation of the Nazi word or the kind of invocation of the Nazism, I guess, here. I mean, of course, everybody's entitled to feel how they want to feel about it. I don't mind. But I do feel like, doesn't this door-to-door enforcement thing kind of remind you of how the Germans went door-to-door to find the Jews? I mean, isn't that exactly what they did?
Exactly. Gestapo.
Like, show your papers.
Exactly what they did.
Show your papers to prove who you are. Isn't that exactly what they're doing? Wear your papers. Show your identity. I mean, and it's the acts of coercion and oppression and intimidation. I mean, isn't that exactly what they did? I mean, that's part of what also drives the use of this idea that it is, mimicking what the Nazis did in Germany. And I appreciate Danielle's just always wise, beyond her very youthful years, insight about how we don't have to go across the oceans to be able to find historical analogs here. It's just, again, a lot of us feel protected. And some of us have been complacent, I think, about what has been happening. And I think it's been really scary because I think some people feel like this whole tempo has accelerated in ways we did not anticipate. And that after the first of the new year, it's gotten a little crazy. Well, yeah. Yeah, Waj, typical overachieving immigrant. Yes, you do get the A+ today, Waj.
I want to be wrong. I wanted to get an F on this paper, Katie. I wanted to be wrong. I get
Touché.
Danielle and I get no joy from the world's worst I told you so. You just had to pay attention to the signs. And like you said, I didn't mean to cut in. But
That's okay.
But when people said, don't use the words white supremacist, don't use the words Nazi, don't use the words fascist, don't use the words authoritarian.
Yeah, but who was telling you that though? Like, who are the people? No, I'm not talking about the chat. I'm talking about who are the people that were pushing back on that historically?
Historically, the last 10 years, the people who have pushed back, I'm going to be very blunt, are people who are privileged. Chickens for Colonel Sanders from our own communities who enjoyed their Tesla and drink rosé with Karen and are the one good black or the one good Muslim. White folks who don't want to confront white supremacy. Well-intentioned white folks. Many of our peers, let's be honest, Katie, many of our peers and colleagues in MSNBC, CNN, journalists, think tanks who said, now, brown cow, you're suffering from TDS. What's wrong with you? Donald Trump, he'll leave peacefully. He's not a white supremacist. These are the folks, Katie.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that because I was not so subtly saying that's the danger of the mainstream media, right? Not calling it what it is and having coddled it for as long as it has, that now the pearl clutching, by the way, did anybody see any pearl clutching on mainstream media over the fact that Donald Trump said fuck you repeatedly and used his middle finger yesterday to an auto worker? No, but when Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry says, get the fuck out of the city, holy shit, you would have thought the world was fucking burning down. I mean, and of course, people know me well that I have a fondness for the F-bomb, but come on. Where is the outrage from you there? No, and that's what that hypocrisy has led us down this primrose path, to your point, Wash.
I think that's a very good, astute observation because on Sunday News, Jacob Fry, who's the mayor dealing with ICE agents terrorizing literally the state and his city, he was asked, well, don't you think you could lower the temperature down when you said F you? And he's like, well, a woman is murdered. And meanwhile, speaking about people pushing back in resistance, a fantastic transition to this story. No, folks, the double standards makes me and Danielle and Katie bash our head. Literally, the president of the United States, a criminal Bulgarian rapist, no lies detected in what I just said right now, flicked off this is the heroes that we need. A factory worker, UAW worker, whose name I will give you in a second. For those who haven't followed the story, the president of the United States flicked him off repeatedly, said, F you. I want to give you the Washington Post write-up. I have it right here. Quote, a lunatic was wildly screaming expletives in a complete fit of rage, and the president gave an appropriate and unambiguous response, Stephen Chung said in a statement to the Washington Post.
Stephen Chung is who they're quoting in the Washington Post? Okay.
We don't claim him. As an Asian, we don't claim him.
Yeah, we've dropped Stephen. He doesn't belong in the racial draft. He's gone. TJ Sabula, Sabula, a 40-year-old UAW Local 600 line worker at the factory, so good, told the Post that he was the one shouting at Trump. He said he has been suspended from work pending an investigation. He called Trump a pedophile protector. This is his response, quote, as far as calling him out, definitely no regrets whatsoever, Sabula said, though he added he is concerned about the future of his job and believes he has been targeted for political retribution for embarrassing Trump in front of his friends. Sabula identifies as politically independent and said he never voted for Trump but has supported other Republicans. He estimated that he was roughly 60 feet away from Trump on Tuesday and that the president could hear him, quote, very, very, very clearly. He said he was specifically referencing Trump's handling of the Epstein matter. I love this quote, Katie and Danielle. He said this, I don't feel as though fate looks upon you often. And when it does, you better be ready to seize the opportunity, he said.
Heck yeah.
Today,
I know that's right.
I think he did that. Katie and Danielle, why can't more of our colleagues be like TJ?
I honestly, like, because the UAW on their Twitter page came out with a statement of support for him and said that they will not, like, they will stand by him and make sure that his job is protected because they believe in the First Amendment. They believe in the ability to speak your mind and that you should not be, you should not have to deal with political retribution for speaking your mind. Now, I want to be clear too, because he didn't call Donald Trump a pedophile. He said, "You're protecting pedophiles," which, if I were there, would have called him a fucking pedophile. But the fact is, he didn't even go that far. He said, "You're protecting pedophiles," which, is he not? Have we seen a drip, drip, drop of the Epstein files since the invasion of Venezuela? Have we seen anything? But now we're seeing Sweden and Germany line up their fucking militaries in Greenland. We have heard nothing, zero zilch about Epstein from the Department of Justice since their wag the dog move. And so bravo to that man for once again saying it, bringing it back into the press, and reminding us, oh yeah, weren't we supposed to be expecting a trove of documents by now? And we've gotten 1% of them.
You know, I want to just quickly mention, I also saw, Danielle, that post from the United Auto Workers, the union that TJ Sabula is a part of. And I want to remind people that are tuning in right now, because it's all interrelated. It's all inextricably intertwined. This Trump administration, as it did in Trump term regime 1.0, it's union busting. It's union busting left and right. I want to remind people, because there's a lot of litigation that's happening right now. Remember, a lot of our federal workers that got screwed over with Doge and everything, they were a part of labor unions, right? And so the unions, they may be courted by Trump sometimes and some politicians, but don't confuse whether or not Trump really loves you, okay, people? Trump does not love you. I've said this with Waj before, that man would never invite you to break bread with him at Mar-a-Lago. Don't fucking confuse yourself, people, okay? So the fact that the United Auto Workers are backing one of their members is fantastic. And number two, I'm glad they said that he has protected speech. He has the First Amendment right, just like the people in the Twin Cities. Portland, Chicago, New York, LA, Seattle, wherever. There's a First Amendment protected speech right. But we're seeing things like I spoke to Congresswoman Yasemin Ansari this morning, and in her state of Arizona, local politicians are trying to pass laws that expand the legal definition of obstruction to include pretty much giving the middle finger to immigration agents, right? That they want to define obstruction as basically you exercising your First Amendment free speech rights. And so that is, stay with me, folks, here, very reminiscent of an authoritarian regime, is it not? Where you punish opposition, where you jail dissidents, right? When people speak up, it is constituting a crime. It's all a part of the plan of the scheme of coercion, oppression, and intimidation.
Coercion, intimidation, and according to the DHS's own guidelines, someone saw that took the language. As an American, you're allowed, according to the DHS guidelines, folks, you can film them. That's not a crime. According to the DHS, you can talk back to ICE officers.
You can use vulgar language. You can do that too.
All of this is within the DHS guidelines, that none of this is illegal. And what they're doing to you, what they're saying to you is, we're going to coerce you to bend the knee or else. And speaking about resistance in all the most unlikely places, Katie, another one that I do not want to people to forget, because news is coming through a fire hose because he's burning down the country for the sake of power, greed, the oligarchy, and white supremacy. We're of a certain age. We never ever really consider, oh, I don't know, the Federal Reserve that too much. They do their job. You get along with your life. You don't sit there and worry about Jerome Powell or whoever is the chair of the Federal Reserve. Well, on Sunday night, folks, while I was watching playoff football, the Fed chair, put in by Donald Trump, Jerome Powell, releases and produces and edits a 2-minute video and publishes it. And speaking about whistleblowing, he informs the world, oh, Donald Trump and his DOJ are threatening me and the Federal Reserve with a potential criminal indictment unless I lowered the interest rates. I've always said this country worships one color more than the color white, and that's the color green. And it got Tillis and Lisa Murkowski to use the words that you just used, Katie. She said the DOJ is coercing Jerome Powell. I saw that. I saw Jerome, I'm like, respect to Jerome Powell. He's not a flaming leftist. But the fact that he came out and said that was him essentially whistleblowing and saying, yo, 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 this is what they're doing on the
Because
deal.
he could have dealt with it in private, frankly, right? Like he could have just like, okay, I'm going to deal with this, blah, blah, but he knows. I mean, it was a couple of months ago when he was correcting Donald Trump's lion ass math that he was using, when they were doing a hard hat walk through construction, and he's talking about all the money that the Trump administration has brought in. And he's like, where did you get those numbers? And he's like, oh, look. And he's like fumbling around with papers. Oh, the numbers are here. And Jerome's like, those are from last year. Like, said that in front of a report. Like, those aren't, that's not correct.
With the
like,
hard hat.
Yeah, with the hard hat on. Look, took his glasses and was just like, no, those are from last year. And so he could have just dealt with it quietly, but he knows this is a bull in a china shop administration. This is we are loud, we break things, we do what we want. And Jerome said, you know what? Actually, I'm going to continue to do my job because I'm looking at the long-term economic viability of this country. You're doing a smash and grab job. And I am, Katie, I want to ask you about the law firm that Jerome Powell now has signed up, that is going to represent him. People have said in mainstream media that this is like a no joke firm. They're like, they go scorched earth. And I wanted to know if you knew about this law firm.
Williams and Connolly. Yeah. They are one of the big law firms that did not bend the knee, a la, Skadden Arps did immediately, and some of the other biggies did. It's funny because I am a family of lawyers. My husband's also a lawyer, and we always talk about really what was at stake for big law firms to have to capitulate, and so early. I mean, it feels like it was years ago for those of us that have been following this, because it frankly was, right? It was almost like a year ago, right? That they were already doing this. Not like the ink hadn't even dried on him becoming the 47th president of the United States. And they were already bending the knee, and they were providing all this bullshit, pro bono hours and all this other stuff. I will tell you that there is a certain elegance about Jay Powell that is compelling. I am a very loud, very, kind of viscerally angry person about a lot of stuff. There is something about the quiet steadiness of Jay Powell that is incredibly, I think, powerful. And him speaking out in that way and then getting such a powerhouse firm to back him, Danielle, just goes to show that all of the credibility that you are talking about, that you may perceive, it exists. I spoke to Heather Boucher yesterday. She was one of the top economic advisors in the Biden White House. She was on his council. She's one of the top American economists, because I wanted to ask her about what a big deal it was that Jay Powell did what he did. And she says not only was that a big deal, because she not only knows him well, and that normally the Fed Reserve Chair would never speak out, but that, it's just part of this whole scheme to defraud Americans, because Trump yesterday at that auto plant in Detroit lied about the tariffs, right?
Yeah.
Lied about our economy, even though we saw that inflation rates may not have changed, but the price of every fucking good has gone up. Right. And so, it's important for us to cut through the noise the best we can. And when it takes people who have strong and steady hands like Jay Powell to do it, then we're grateful for that lift that we get.
And this is like, the small mustard seeds of hope. Jerome Powell speaking out is huge. These 10 prosecutors resigning and telling you, they're not interested in prosecuting the murderer. They're interested in demonizing and harassing Renee Good and her widow. This factory worker showing more guts and more strength than these law firms. And I want to shame these law firms because I'm still a recovering attorney.
That's right.
They bent the knee, folks. They didn't have to. These are law firms. They could have fought. They know the law. They chose to bend the knee, and I think they've given, $500 million of pro bono work to the Trump administration. These are the law firms, because I want to name their cowardice. Paul Weiss, Skadden, Miliband, Kirkland and Ellis, Latham and Watkins, Wilkie and Farr, A&O Shearman, Cadwalder, Simpson and Thatcher. And the one law firm that didn't do it, the one that was actually on point was Williams. And what was the good one? Williams and Connolly?
Williams and Connolly. And then also the other firm, I'm brain farting, that our good friend Mark Elias used to be a partner at.
Oh, yeah.
They have not bent the knee either. And it's important, right? Because these are people that have the financial wherewithal to withstand the storm. And for them to have bent the knee so early sent a horrific message. And you also still have to laud and applaud people like the institutions, the educational institutions that have still stood strong in the face of a lot of pressure. Look, there's very real exposure and harm that can come from standing up to this administration. But I do think that we're seeing a real, I think, shift in the energy. And we just saw it even over the weekend with the ICE Out for Good. Like that was a very powerful turnout on Saturday and Sunday across our United States. And we've seen it on No King's Day 2.0. These are very real moments in the American current. And I think that we always have to kind of call them out for the good that it's doing.
Can I mention some breaking news?
Yep.
With breaking in the sense in the past hour, Trump has frozen visas to 75 countries. It was a diplomatic cable that was leaked and is now being reported on mainstream news and also Ken Klippenstein. The Trump administration has decided to refuse all visa applicants from 75 different countries, according to a diplomatic cable. Effective January 21, the directive is signed by little Marco Rubio and was circulated before the publication of the story. Citing the Immigration and Nationality Act, the order points to concerns over immigrants being financially self-sufficient as the reason of the freeze. Quote, Trump has made clear that immigrants must be financially self-sufficient to protect public benefits for American citizens. Applicants from these countries are at a high risk for becoming a public charge and recourse to local, state, and federal government resources in the United States. End quote. If I may, folks, this is white nationalist language being read from the Secretary of State. This was written by Stephen Miller. The Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 is what allowed so many of our immigrants to come, especially my parents. It is what Stephen Miller has said is the worst thing that has happened to America, because instead of a lot of white Europeans coming, which is what they thought, who they thought would come, you know who came? People like my parents, Katie's parents, and Danielle's parents. Asians and Latinos in particular were 70% of the beneficiaries. If I may, people born outside of America, immigrants, foreigners, commit fewer crimes than native-born Americans, help the economy, and do something that Donald Trump hasn't done, pay their taxes. They're more entrepreneurial. They make the country more diverse. They make the country more dynamic, more scientists, engineers, brilliant doctors that have come as a result of the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act. And now this mother effer has put 75 of these countries, want to take a guess? A whole bunch of black and brown countries.
I was going to say, have you seen
he threw in like four countries that are mostly white. Four of them.
Azerbaijan, Macedonia,
Russia,
Moldova,
Bosnia,
Muslims in Bosnia. And,
yeah.
And speaking about, I was thinking about this, Katie and Danielle. We're all children of immigrants. I want to bring this up with you.
Outrageous.
There's a World Cup coming.
But this is what they did, Waj, because this is what the AP reported on that story, which was they are doing away with permanent visas, right? Anyone that's applying to be a permanent, like to come in for a particular amount of time, they're saying no to. But they're like, in light of the Olympics and the World Cup, you can still do that tourist visa. You can still do a tourist visa, but you can't do any long-term visas. That's what the AP was reporting. And I'm like, here's an idea, world, dear world, don't fucking come here. Love us. Like, they don't protect or care for Americans. They certainly are not going to protect and care for you. Don't come here.
Wouldn't you be terrified if you would come here as a tourist and then
it happened in Times Square. A Chilean woman was on holiday, came to New York City, was with her like 15-year-old in Times Square, and she was picked up. And she's like, but I'm here. I'm a tourist. And I'm just like, touring America now is like touring a slave plantation, which people fucking do and get married at. It is like fucking touring just a broken country. Do not come here. Like, I want more people to cancel their FIFA tickets. I want more people to cancel their desire to come for the Olympics. I think it's now over 20,000 people have canceled their World Cup tickets to America. They can still go to Canada and still see, go to Mexico. But why would you risk coming here? I don't see it.
You notice also who's not on these lists also are the white South Afrikaners
they're in Alabama.
They get the red carpet rolled out from this Trump administration to be able to come to the United States. They never, ever are told no, because this administration thinks that they are being subjugated and persecuted as white South Afrikaners.
Yeah, they packed up their Louis Vuitton bags and they boarded flights that were paid for by us, and now they're in Alabama taking good white people's jobs.
Katie, goes back to the point when people still, I missed that comment here, but people, what Danielle have always said for several years now on democracy issues, that the enduring sins of America, I'll add 3, is white supremacy, capitalism, and misogyny. And this country refuses to confront it, refuses to acknowledge it. Instead, we whitewash it, we glaze it over, and then we embrace the racist traitors. Instead of holding them accountable, we make statues for Robert E. Lee. We name schools after Jefferson Davis. We elevate the war criminals. We give a pass to Richard Nixon and Dick Cheney, right? We say, oh, Donald Trump has a racial trip up and a racial flare up. And we all want to rush to reconciliation. Everyone wants reconciliation, but no one wants truth. And without truth, you don't get to reconciliation, right? Which is why so many Americans who aren't black, who aren't brown, who aren't indigenous, who aren't Muslim, who haven't had the boot of the government on their neck, they're asking the question, how could this happen? And the rest of us have said, this has been happening. You just didn't pay attention. And to those people who say, well, why are you using the word Nazi, Waj, and white supremacy? They're literally using Nazi slogans, Nazi conspiracy theories, Nazi font. The Department of Homeland Security, folks, 3 times in the past 2 months has tweeted out, Katie and Danielle,
remigration,
which is a white supremacist term for ethnic cleansing. What do you think this is, folks? Denaturalizing citizens, kidnapping people, pressuring them, now saying we don't want you here, trying to end birthright citizenship, and promoting white supremacist conspiracies. Katie, what will it take for the comfortable browns and Asians, and we know them, and the whites, and the white women? I know people don't like to hear it. 45% of white women, spicy whites. You're with me and Katie and Danielle. We're not talking about you. We're talking about the majority of white women who have voted for Donald Trump 3 times in a row. I know you don't like hearing this. I'm just bringing facts.
I call them triple Trumpers. Yeah.
Triple Trumping white women who will align with white supremacy and patriarchy because they think it will protect them and their husband and their children, even though they will die from measles now and no jobs and literally life expectancy has gone down. But I digress. What will it take to wake up these ethnics, these browns and Asians who think, drinking rosé with Karen makes them safe, and these whites?
So I'm gonna ask for a little bit of just some grace from you, Danielle, and you, Waj, and from everybody who's tuning in. I don't think there was anything ever wrong with us coming to this country believing in the dream that was being sold, right? Mm-hmm. I think about my mom and my dad coming to this country from Korea and why they came. And I don't think there was ever anything wrong with that. And then when they did come here, there's a reason why I'm not fluent in Korean, right? There's a reason why, especially for, and I'll speak just for my family, right, specifically and culturally, why I never have really felt like I belong somewhere, because I am decidedly look very different than most people. but I don't even speak my quote native language. I guess my native language is English because I was born here, but my family's from Korea and I don't really know which is my culture's. But for me, it was okay because I was here in the United States, and the way that it was kind of pitched and sold to us was, it is okay that you come from a different place, but you come here, and there was something very much of a siren song of being a quote American. And so it has led to some confusion for me and for others in terms of where do we fit in and where do we belong. But there was nothing, I don't think there was anything ever wrong with that. And I think that we have to be very careful and give some grace to people that perhaps kind of grew up with maybe either in environments in their families or kind of, I don't even call it indoctrination. They just kind of grew up with this idea that being an American was a good thing. And now the definition of being American has been drastically changed, even though it has been insidiously happening over time. Now being an American, according to this Trump regime, is being a white Christian nationalist, right? Which again is nothing new, but I do think it's now being kind of slapped in people's faces a lot harder than it did before. It's so overt, they're not even trying to be subtle about it anymore. And I think that's where people are kind of conflicted. They still want to believe in the dream. They still want to believe in the idea of America being kind of that like shining castle on the hill, right? That beautiful kind of dream that was sold to them. And I still think that that's part of the reason why they're being a little complacent or a little slow on the draw here a little bit, because I think for them, they still ascribe to the idea that it could still be that, or that's what it's supposed to be. And that's why and also people don't like dealing with ugly. It's very uncomfortable for people to deal with ugly. It's very uncomfortable for people to feel like they have to be honest about these things. Thank God there are those of us that are. But I think it's kind of hard. And I feel like that's where we are in this tension right now of trying to lead people, into and out of their kind of place. And not let them stay mired in dystopia and not stay mired in the misery, and tell them, look, if you unite and we act together, we can actually lift ourselves up.
I think that there is a lot that is there that is also true in the fact that what was sold to a lot of different ethnic groups was assimilation. If you assimilate, if you, kind of tone down, right, your otherness, and I mean, you're hearing it now. JD Vance has said this most recently. Stephen Miller has said this. They've all used this kind of language of like, this is our country. You come here, you got to speak English. I remember when we started having automated systems that were giving English and Spanish, and there was a huge pushback against that, right? And so there is this idea that when you come here, there is this excitement and this desire to want to be American. And in a lot of instances, it wasn't until the last probably 20, 30 years where we're like, why did we have to give up our, like, whether it's our home language, our traditions, like all of these things? If America was this beautiful place that was sold to us as a place of opportunity, then why would we have to assimilate into a way that erases who we are in order to fit in? And that is a challenge that like younger generations are now 20, 30 years later saying, no, like I'm here, but like I'm proudly blank American, hyphenated American, and I will wave my flag and do X, Y, and Z. And I think that that is the difference. When our families came here, you're talking about the 1970s, you're talking about coming at a time where America was still very much scorched earth from the racist riots, from the trying to get the Civil Rights Act passed. Like all of these things were happening, so you wanted to kind of come in and like don't break nothing. Nobody will see me. I'm just gonna come in.
Don't rock the boat.
Don't rock the boat.
Don't rock the boat.
You rode the boat.
But those are the comfortable brown and black, though.
Yeah.
And the Asian, that's what you're asking, Waj. There are people that are positions of wealth and power that are not dipping their toe into the very warm waters. Come on in. It's nice here, of speaking up a little bit more. And we need that. We need that activism. Because that burden has to be shared equally. Danielle and I have spoken about it often, this idea that it has been an inequitable burden on certain groups and communities of color for a long time. And I do think we need to have some very difficult conversations to disabuse some of our elders. I mean, I'm 50, right? But to have to sit there and have these conversations with people that are unbelievably comfortable, that's why I use the adjective complacent. Even in the face of total horrors that we're seeing in real time, some people remain very complacent where they are, simply because, as Danielle said, they were told, assimilate and things will be good. And so in that process of assimilation, they got a little brainwashed, right, into thinking that this is what it meant to be, quote, a good American, and they have to disabuse themselves of it now.
And if you're a model minority, that was the greatest trick the devil pulled on Asian Americans and children of immigrants and Black and brown folks, is that this is your passport to whiteness. You'll never be white, but you'll be asymptotic to whiteness. And by being close to whiteness, you might not live within the gated community, but we'll let you live right outside and you'll be safe. And one of the prices, the cost of getting in to the white community, even though you won't be white, is you have to pull the ladder up and you have to be an enforcer of white supremacy. You have to police the bad browns and the bad Asians and the bad refugees. And you have to tell them, now, tut, tut, learn the language. Now, rock the boat. Don't you protest. Don't you be an agitator. Come on now, you're messing it up for the rest of us. Why are you poor? Why are you so lazy? Pull yourselves up from the bootstrap. If I could do it, you could do it, you lazy Black, you lazy Muslim, you lazy brown.
The wedges. It's the wedges. This is how they successfully drove wedges between communities of color. And that's the reason why we always have to have these very honest conversations about it, because it's pitting communities against each other. Why? Because then we're fighting over the crumbs. I said this before with you, Raj. I'm sick and tired of us having to fight over the fucking crumbs. Why are we only having to fight over the crumbs? That's
because
horrible.
they've told us, they've limited our imagination. They've truncated our dream. They said, you can't even imagine being the hero of the story. The best you, Danielle and Waj and Katie, can be is the sidekick. The best you can be is Robin. You can never, and so many of us, let's be honest, many of our parents, wow, we're vice president. And I'm like, you're qualified to be president. It's okay. Wow, I couldn't get the prom queen. I'm like, you're more dynamic, more smart, more handsome than the prom king. He's white. It belongs to him. Let's be honest. And it's that type of colonization that we've done, is that we're content being number 2 on the call sheet when we've earned to be number 1. And so many of us and so many Americans are content with the crumbs. And this is what I like about Mamdani. And he comes in, and I don't worship any politicians, folks, child of immigrants. And he creates another way. He says, I want us to imagine boldness. I want us to imagine where I can be the mayor of New York City. I want to imagine where my wife can be the first wife of the mayor, and we can have women running the show, and we can have free healthcare, and we can have free buses. Why not? Let's imagine it. And by the way, I'm not going to be a model minority. I'm not going to be embarrassed that I eat with my hands. I'm not going to be embarrassed that my wife speaks Arabic. I'm not going to be embarrassed that I was born in Africa. I'm not going to be embarrassed by Muslims. I'm not going to be embarrassed by the fact that New York is diverse. I'm not going to be embarrassed by the woke. I'm going to lift everybody up. And this is what I want to get to is, folks, Danielle and I and Katie have said fascists come for everyone. And people didn't believe us. And we said that ICE, it is inevitable. Katie, Danielle have been saying this. To just the way it is, we've been following Stephen Miller. It is inevitable that they're going to kill a white person. And now they're openly saying, yeah, we're going to kill you. We're going to cover up the murder and nobody's safe. So Katie, your response to everyone who thinks their Tesla and their Rosé will protect them.
No fucking way. How's that?
Ain't
gonna fucking. I mean, I like my rosé. Don't get me wrong.
I do too.
But I'd rather be drinking it with y'all. Yeah, it's not. That is the delusion that we need to kind of break people out of. That is the complacency we've been speaking of. This idea that it could happen to other people but not happen to me, and we're seeing it happen. And that's why I said part of this Renee Nicole Good murder being so shocking is it's a suburban mom in Minneapolis, St. Paul, who just dropped her kid off at school, who was blowing a whistle, honking a horn. I mean, I fucking honk my horn 20 times a day on my road rage. So it's like, the idea that the quote, the others has now included people that look like you. That's a very serious moment for a lot of people.
Yep.
Danielle, final word to you and Katie before we shamelessly promote Katie.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's important that we continue to have these conversations. And I particularly, appreciate us talking about the model minorities, us talking about the way in which like our minds have been colonized, right? And the
Right.
reason why I think that, Waj, you and I speak a lot about Mamdani, one, because I'm in New York, but also because he is Muslim. He is of that generation that is not apologizing for like where he was born, what he like, who he worships, like who he is married, like what he looks like, and his, not his parents, but like, the grandparents and some odd before, they came in and they were apologetic. Oh, I like the same things you like. I want to do this. And he said, no, this is who I am. Rock with me or not. Do you know? And that's to me, that's the difference. And that's the beauty of time, right? Is recognizing the ways that when you gave a little bit of yourself away, right? You were allowing them to erase you, and you were an active part of that project. And that's how we get to the place that we're in right now.
And
I
can
like
I just
that.
say, I'm very grateful. Everyone has a different story, like you mentioned, Katie and Danielle, but I'm very grateful that my parents, right, there's that saying, fresh off the boat. Then there's that saying, you burn the boat to assimilate. And the reason why people do that was because they saw what happened to the Chinese Americans. They saw what happened to black folks. They're like, oh shit, we want to be safe. So there's a reason why I did it, for their safety. But my parents, in hindsight, God bless them, they said, bring the boat inside the house. Who gives an F? They named me Wajahat to blend. They didn't teach me English, even though I was born and raised here. Gave zero F. Like literally, I'm like, couldn't you have just given me like any other name? Like, we don't care. Like, I literally spoke no English when they dropped me off at preschool. My parents were like, he'll learn. Whatever.
I love it.
And so, even though I was mocked and ridiculed and was the only brown guy and the only one wearing husky pants and the only Muslim, I retained all these aspects of my culture. And I learned from an early age to defend it and be proud of it. So I was very, very lucky. And I was also very lucky, folks, that I grew up in diverse California. So something about diversity, folks, it makes you more resilient, more strong, tastier music, better looking people, better food. It's the better story. Katie, shamelessly promote yourself and why you're the baddest bitch on Substack.
No, sidekick to the baddest bitch. I just want to make sure it's clear. I put that. I am okay with being a sidekick. My immigrant sidekick, energy is fine as long as it's next to Danielle. You can please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Katie Phang News. I am trying to hit all of these major issues from legal to political to even cultural. Today, I spent time, as I said, with Congresswoman Yasemin Ansari. Did you know that she's the first Iranian American Democrat elected to Congress? And she just introduced bipartisan resolution concerning supporting the protesters in Iran. I mean, these are the type of things that I like to talk about, not to mention her trying to get Kristi Noem impeached and defunding ICE. And then I spoke to Robert Garcia this afternoon about the latest in the Epstein files. And like I said, Heather Boucher yesterday. I try to cover it as much as I can, and I would always appreciate free subscription over at YouTube. And then at all other social media, including Substack, I am Katie Phang, Phang, not Fang. I always have to clarify that. But I appreciate always to all of you tuning in, and especially to Danielle and Waj, who I have known for years. We want to talk about Waj and I doing some fucking immigrant shit.
We met each other, folks. I got Allison Gill coming in a minute, but 30 seconds just to bear with us to promote Katie and Danielle. I knew Katie back when 9 years ago. Yeah, 9 years ago when we were not paid. She was in Florida. I was in DC. They used to bring us out Saturday butt crack dawn morning on MSNBC. And then I used to finish the roundtable, and then I went to the green room, and there was a Katie Phang, and then Katie was there, and that's how we met. And then Katie and I kept doing this for like months for free. And I'm like, when will they give Katie a permanent position? And they finally did. And then she went from, folks, she was so talented. She went from unpaid to paid contributor to a sidekick on some legal show. And then they're like, we're wasting her talent. And then they gave her own show.
Yeah.
So that's where Katie went. That's the evolution.
Well, I appreciate that.
It was a wonderful evolution to see.
Well, the best part about the evolution is I have been liberated to be unleashed, Katie, over on independent media. That's been the best part. F-bombs and all. TJ Sabula, you are my buddy there, Fuck Donald Trump. So there we go.
I've put in Katie's newsletter there and subscription. Please subscribe. Danielle, shamelessly promote yourself.
Yes, friends, you have been watching this on the Damn Digest, as well as the Left Hook, and as well as with Katie. So as Waj always says, we're terrible capitalists. All of my content is free at the Damn Digest. But if you're interested in becoming a paid subscriber, I am running a discount right now until the end of the month. So do check that out. And I am taking a break because I literally flew in a few hours ago, but the Danielle Moodie Show will be back live on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern, which I do Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m.
Literally,
Eastern.
Danielle came back in the morning. I'm like, just sleep. And
I literally did.
If I may, and this is with your permission only, Katie and Danielle, I have a partner, Ground News, which I want them to actually support you also.
Oh, they're great. Oh, they're fantastic. Absolutely. Go ahead, man. They're
fantastic. Ground News actually is the first official supporter of the Left Hook. And specifically, the reason why I want to promote them right now is Katie's listeners and Danielle's listeners. They have a 40% off. I do not get any money from this. So I want to share this with anyone who's watching. It's groundnews.com/hook. And if people are like, what's Ground News? The reason why I'm aligning them with them is it's run by a woman who is a NASA scientist, a daughter of immigrants. It gets their money from you, the subscribers. It's a worldwide aggregator of news. So it's a one-stop shop. They bring all the news from all the different outlets. But the reason why I support them is they audit the news. So each news story from each news, if you will, channel, they tell you the bias of that news source. They tell you whether it leans left or right. And then they also tell you who owns that news channel, who runs it. And then the reason why I really like is they have something called Spotlight, where next to each other, they show you what the right-wing media is covering and what the rest of us are covering. And so I find it to be an awesome aggregator and auditor, and they support allies and friends like iHip and Mehdi and others. So once I saw that, I'm like, you can come on as the first official, if you will, sponsor partner of the Left Hook. It's groundnews.com/hook. Anyone who's watching right now, Katie's listeners, Danielle's listeners, you get 40% off. I don't get the money. Try it out. And I want Ground News to also support Danielle. And if they don't, support Katie.
They do. No, I am also a supporter, supported by and supporter of Ground News. And so, yes, absolutely. Let's get them to Danielle as well.
Oh, wonderful. And also, Danielle didn't mention this. She has a horrible capitalist special. It's 25% off. Me and Danielle have 25% off. Katie, we're terrible capitalists. Your immigrant parents will hate us. I'm sorry. Pretend, just walk. Be like Homer Simpson right now. Go in the bushes. But we have everything for free. No paywall. But we depend on the kindness of strangers. So if you have some money, go to Katie. If you have a few dollars left over, like $4, go to Danielle. And if you have $3.75 left over, I have a New Year's special right now. Thank you all for watching. 3,000 people. We'll be back. Danielle's going to sleep because she's earned it. Katie's going to be a bad bitch on her YouTube channel. And I'm going to be back in 1 minute with Allison Gill. Thanks all. We'll be back Friday for Democracy-ish. Thank you,
yes,
Katie. Thank you,
Danielle. Bye. Bye, Katie.